All right, so we are back. We're live. Please let me know if you can hear me and the sound is good in the chat. Sorry for the delay. It's just going to be me, myself, and I, the BurnEye, the homunculus Bert and Ernie, the Alchemist minions, and of course, all of you beautiful souls and awesome beings tuning in. Paul Shields, Anthony Williams, Three Fingers. It's just me with a Wilbur, of course, watching alongside JT. And anybody else that's tuning in for these late night Weekend at Bernie's Year in Review podcast. We're going to do some live alchemy demonstrations, some experiments and procedures throughout tonight's show here. I'm going to be harvesting the monoatomic silver, aka silver ormus, aka silver gans, this metamaterial, single atom state pure silver elements, as well as the colloidal silver water next to it. We're also going to discuss a little bit of, do a live blood alchemy experiment demonstrating what happens when you pour a little blood, aka your own plasma. And that's what this material, the ormus, the monoatomics is plasma state materials, nanomaterial. And good day, Daniel Fail and the Lurker D. Hello. Good to see you all in here. And yeah, so we're going to do that. Sadly, for whatever reason, Dutch Sense wasn't able to join us. But as it is a year in review, we will still have some Dutch on with, amongst other things, show all of the different podcasts that we've done over the last year here. Two full interviews with Dutch, and we'll be replaying some of the first interview with Dutch, myself, Stellium 7, Luke, Ancient Historia, amongst others that joined in for that epic episode. But before we go there, we will also discuss what did I do this summer, share it all with you, and some upcoming interviews as well. Prep the Oretic from Twitch. Offer a promotion to my channel. Well, guess you'll have to email me. Links are in the description. Probably just a bot, but oh well. I have been getting some interesting emails. Who knows? Maybe one finally isn't a scam, and I might be getting a free wireless battery charger to try out. And we will see what sort of promo options come up. Open for advertising for non-scam products. So that's why I haven't done anything so far, because, well, everything's been a scam that's emailed me up to this date, but that will hopefully has changed. All right, so first we're looking at Red Rock Coulee, Alberta right now. It is right, left, depending on your perspective, of Medicine Hat, Alberta, so southeastern Alberta, and it is southwest of Medicine Hat itself, where the Medicine Hat Badland Guardians, the geoglyph site, is to the northeast of Medicine Hat. This site is to the southwest. And I visited both of them this past summer, and finding some, rather interesting possible megaliths and ancient sites. And the stones here, all the red stones, but not just that. It looks like also mounds, what could clearly be pyramid mounds that definitely need LiDAR on them at the very least. And the geography of this area is just something else. And each one of these being a small car-sized giant red ball. Lots of them broken apart in that area, but it was several valleys and, well, what can only be described as mounds, pyramidal mound hills that these balls were on. And here you can see another what looks like a step mound site, and the giant red heavy balls on top, nonetheless, not buried like we see in so much stuff that archaeological sites that are way deeper, way more buried than they should be. Yet in this Red Rock Coulee, southern Alberta site, it actually is the opposite, where these anomalous giant red sandstone balls are actually on the top of the soil and the surrounding terrain. And let's see here what other pictures I have of it up, as I do have a couple. Not sure if it's in this roll, but we'll find it before the stream is done. Up close of some of them split open, and that they literally have concentric circles throughout them when they're cracked open. Here, another what looks like perfect mound, of course, right? Like, oh yeah, this isn't a pyramid ancient site. No, yes, I suspect this is ancient megaliths in southern Alberta. Pyramid site. And if these aren't convincing as possible mounds, wait till I go back to Drumheller, Alberta, and document the layered mounds there that literally litter the entire river valley and town slash, I guess maybe city of Drumheller. World famous for the Royal Tyrrell Museum of dinosaurs, and I myself having a cryptid experience in downtown Drumheller at 3:30 in the morning one night when I was at my friend's place. Don't care if you believe me or not. I experienced what I experienced. I even pegged it with my laser that I had on me at the time, and it was cruising. It was high up, and it was big. Whether, dragon or thunderbird or pterodactyl, petrodactyl, something, it was just huge. And the hair, just even right now, again, stands up on the back of my neck every time I think about it. When you're in that moment of you feeling like you are prey, you are being hunted, when you're in that situation, your instincts, adrenaline, everything kicks in, and the shivers that you get, that you're aware that your life is in the in peril, right? And this thing, it was just nuts. It blocked out the moon. It was crazy. But yeah, that's for another day, another episode. We will get into all of the cryptids. And shout out to Frankie at New West Reset, hooking me up with this cryptids book right here that we will be doing a feature episode together with the New West Reset and go into the cryptids of Western North America. And I will go into detail my own experiences with what I believe were Sasquatch, amongst other things like I just spoke of with the pterodactyl, dragon, dinosaur, thunderbird, whatever the heck it was definitely hunting, and it was in Drumheller. But this is not Drumheller we're looking at, though. The Badlands of Alberta actually stretch from oh, good day, Isaac Amor, brother from another mother, tuning in from Facebook. Good sir. If you're down, Isaac, next summer, we'll have to do some camping and exploring when I go back to these sites, if you're up for it. And for all, actually, try to do a YouTube meetup camping exploration site tour of southern Alberta, of Writing on Stone Park, which is the Milk River / southernmost Badlands border of Montana and the U.S. That extends these Badlands all the way up. I believe it's 400 kilometers from south to north. I could be mistaken, but that sounds correct. And so it goes from this Milk River, Writing on Stone, up through this Red Rock Coulee that we're currently looking at, through Medicine Hat Badlands, all the way up to Drumheller, Alberta, and even further north. Just massive, extensive, insane, what are labeled these Badlands. They're pretty desolate, barren looking, like they're not lush by any means. I do believe that the majority of it is actually arid and classified technically as desert, and that nothing really grows through these. Yet in my explorations of I am starting to find a couple in the Red Rock Coulee area, but more so it was everywhere in the Medicine Hat Badlands Guardians, with all of the terracing for what looked like ancient usage of agriculture, of the water and storing it better, and just agricultural farming on a much more harmonic and efficient manner than what we do today. And that potentially these once now Badlands were once lush, or at least heavily, densely populated and well farmed areas. And my apologies having to go back and forth to different computers, as I still haven't been able to get StreamYard to let me log back into my main laptop yet. It's just a pain in the butt, but we're making do. And what gets me on this is how they're literally resting on the top ridge, like on top, not just on top of the soil, but also on like the very top of these geology here, and the hills / possible mounds, whatever they are, just anomalous. It is anomalous in its features. And for those unaware, I actually did 3 years of post-secondary education majoring in geology and geography. So I do have a bit of a scientific background in this, and I find these so much of the official story just BS and impossible. Yeah, right. And well, And what we speculate, Isaac, if you've seen, and actually what I will be playing a segment of coming up with the Dutch Synths first interview, but with Stellium 7 joins in, he looks into this Titanology and what we believe, if you believe in the 5 ages of the sun, and like that there were, giants in those days beforehand and possible titans before that, that these could also be biogeology, as in giant seeds or giant eggs potentially left over, or, giant bowling balls from titans themselves. Who knows? But that what seems to be evident in all of these Badlands sites throughout North America, not just in Canada, but also the US, Utah, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, everywhere that they call these Badlands, that they look like they've had some sort of mass catastrophe, whether it was like nuclear or a plasma, some sort of insane past heat and destruction that hit it. And now we are getting into the actual Badland Guardian site of Medicine Hat, Alberta. And I did take a sample to get tested and to look at, Isaac, to answer your question. They do seem, and they claim to be of sandstone, but there's a few features. I'm going to have to do a full episode on it, and I'll most likely be doing it with Wandering Wolf. Shout out to Michael at Wandering Wolf Productions. Epic channel and work that he does, visiting every ancient site, anomalous sites around North America, South America, Asia, Middle East. He's been all over, and looking forward to catching up with him. And he was the one who put me on to the actual location of Red Rock Coulee that we just looked at, and now we are looking at the hillsides of what is the picture at the top, my logo of Crypto Alchemist, the face of the Badlands Guardians. Sorry, it's actually this guy right here. My logo, of course, being this guy, which is just down the valley, probably 10 kilometers over, 5 to 10 kilometers from this guy right here. And it was this guy right here that I'm going to be showing all of the next pictures of our different sides, hillsides and angles of this hill. You can see the main road separating the two faces, with the Quetzalcoatl, I believe, the dragon headdress or snake headdress on this Aztec, Mayan, Olmec looking warrior guy, and that each hill face making up this giant feature is completely terraced, as in terraces, potentially agricultural terraces would be the purpose of it. And that is what you're looking at right here in this hillside. And you can see these parallel lines going up and down every single foot and, incline angle of these hillsides, these parallel terraces everywhere. And this is part of this macro terraforming that created these massive faces, figurines, geoglyphs from above. And that at one point, I would be willing to wager that this was all used as agricultural terracing. And from my brief conversation with the current rancher farmer owners of this property, they definitely are not responsible for it. They do not use it. They barely, even traverse it, yet alone plow it or try to farm it other than just for cattle grazing. And when I was there in mid-June, which is actually Alberta's rainy season this year, it was so dry in June still that he was afraid of wildfire breaking out, and thus I wasn't able to explore more of the site than what I did here. But as we continue, you can see every single surface, every single incline and angle of these massive hill features have these parallel lines, these parallel terraces. How high are the ridges? I would say at least a couple hundred feet, if not well, yeah, probably at least one, at least a couple hundred. Each one of those is each terrace, each parallel line is about a meter on average. I didn't measure them at the time, but that would be my best estimate from what I saw while I was there. And yeah, from bottom to top, maybe even a few hundred. Yeah, so the terraces, some were about a foot and some were a meter. It was weird, depending on the hill. The smaller hills, now that I think about it, were about a foot. The bigger ones had them at about a meter. And as you can see, just over and over and over, every single which way on them. And this would be extremely ancient terraforming or construction, and that it still remains today, to this day, as I guess a testimony to just how incredible this work really is. Oops, going too far. Here we go. We can see from another angle another hill face on it. Terraces down, just everywhere. And this is just a small sampling of the pictures that I have and of the hills there of it. Still will be doing full-length features on this, going over all of the evidence and the material, the pictures, video, content that I've collected and got this summer. Oh yeah, no, definitely, Isaac. They would not be using farm equipment on those steep inclines today. God no, like you'd roll a vehicle trying to drive up these, a lot of them. And let's see. So right down in the middle here was like the one like path, the one vehicle path. Actually, it might be below the picture cutoff. I'm not sure. Either that or it's hidden by foliage or something. But yeah, it was very rarely you could tell driven on, and that it was more one half of it was used as game trail and for like the cattle and whatnot, and the tire track on the second part of the trail, fairly rarely used, with lots of plants growing up in it, like it hadn't been driven on in quite some time. And that as I explored and climbed up and down these hills, making sure that it's like, oh, this isn't each single one, definitely not all animal trails, grazing trails, or anything from recent human construction whatsoever. So this is to the northeast of Medicine Hat, Alberta, and the Red Rock coulees I was showing. Oops, sorry, wrong way. These are Red Rock coulees here to the southwest of Medicine Hat, Alberta. So a lot of very interesting stuff around Medicine Hat. And then what we are showing here is the backside of Mount Yamnuska. And Mount Yamnuska is in Kananaskis country. I believe it actually could be part of, or is part of the goodness gracious, is it the Stony Reserve that is out there, or the Blood? I think it's Stony. The Seek, no, not the Seek, that's to the east. Why can't I think of the actual reservation name? I'm not sure. It'll come to me anyways. Lots of anomalous megalithic sites here, and what could be the entrance to an underground mountain, I don't know, city, passageway, tunnels, mausoleum, burials, who knows? But I believe it's is guarded by these guardians here, and in the cliff above we have chiseled out pathway that go into entrances into the mountain, and I've now hiked here twice, and there are actual faces on these ancient guardian badlands, this one being bears. And these, I don't know, they look kind of alien and elongated head skulls. And that is just one portion of this area that is anomalous, that I'll be doing a full feature episode with shout out Cody to Catch, my brother Cody. For those that are into King of the Dot or freestyling or hip hop in general, Cody, lifelong friend of mine, we hiked up this mountain originally, and TJ to Catch as well, my brother, his brother, brothers, when we let out rest in peace, bless your soul, Cat to Catch their mother's ashes on top of this mountain, is when we found these original Badland Guardian, Mountain Guardians on the backside, as well as my dog leading us to a tunnel on the front side of Yamnuska, which, let's see, do I have it? Oh, no. I will show it before we are done this stream. That looks like a giant reptoid guarding a cave and entrance that my dog, he ran off to it and like tracked to this mountain cave on the front side of Yamnuska. And I haven't really gone into detail about it, as I want Cody to tell the story more so before I make mine public or we discuss it together. But currently looking at, there's two pathways on this cliff face, this being the one to the right side, and then there's also one to the left side right here. And it looks like there's two separate entrances that are carved, chiseled paths out of the backside of this mountain. We've done our research. There's no mining, no history of mining, and it is potentially sacred Indian land. So could this be a tomb back there? Oops, gone too far. Sorry about that. Okay, so Now that we have covered that, we will go into some alchemy, but first I will play a bit of the Dutch Sense interview. Number 1, we've done 2 so far. Hopefully number 3 happens soon. He was stating so earlier tonight on his stream that it will be happening, and who knows, he might still even show up to this one, as he's got the links, but don't know if he was able to get into his email. Apparently he's locked out. Who knows? Who knows? But I promised some Dutch, so we shall deliver some Dutch and start off with the interview 1 of myself, Dutch, Ancient Historia, and Stellium 7.
They can imagine somebody lifting on the underside of a big piece of stone. And whether it's round or flat or disc or whatever, that when you lift on the underside of something, and if it's got cracks up through it, you can understand that the pressure goes to those cracks that are in whatever you're lifting on. And in this case, something is lifting on the underside of South America right now that's coming up through the plate, and it's going to hit right as it comes up through the plate. It hits up at the top, and that's where the break happens. And that's when we get a big earthquake. And what's led me into interacting with BurnEye and so forth, guys, just so you don't, if you don't know, a series of earthquakes, how can I put this easily? There's a series of earthquakes have started striking below certain things that you may have heard about before, like what people call star forts. Small ones, star forts, bastion forts that like skeptics would talk about as being just like with cannons on top, all the way up to structures that are the size 300 miles or more long. Structures that I've found on either side. Like, for instance, I found 3 huge 300-mile long star forts in the United States that make up the whole west coast of the United States, 1,000 miles long total. It's indisputable that they're in the shape of star forts. But what I found is disturbing. In the middle of each one of them is a military base that's been built. Vandenberg Air Force Base in the middle of one of them, where we do space launches from the pinnacle tip of it. Edwards Air Force Base, where we launch our nuclear bombers from. On the side of it is Area 51 of all places and our nuclear test sites. On the other side of it is 29 Palms Marine Bombing Range. That's just one of them. Another one I found has Facebook Data Center is built in the middle of one of the 300-mile long star forts on the West Coast. It's deliberately right in the middle of the pinnacle tip, right where Vandenberg is down in California, in its star fort. And there's earthquakes striking below each one. That's how I found this stuff. And I was already looking into mud flood. I was already looking into other stuff. But when I started to find the earthquakes below this is where I then started to look at your guys' channels. And then, of course, a whole series of other things have been discovered and so forth. I hate to get so serious, man, but like, this is how I found these guys. And so we're going to be talking about a lot of this stuff. I think I'm going to show it and so forth, what I found, and the star fort's 300 miles long. And
it's like, sorry, I'm scrolling through all of, like, you got so many of your own live streams going over of literally the points showing every single live recorded earthquakes that happen throughout each day, and the cycles of it all, the magnitudes, and it's just an epic amount of proportion of work that for those that do know you, you're 600,000 on YouTube and 50,000 on Twitch right now. It should be in the millions if we weren't all so shadow bound, but regardless, trying to find the one where you were doing the showing the star fort measurements across North America, these alignments of these 300 miles of these giant terraformed structures that you found, and then like you've connected them with some of these old star fort maps that we've been looking into, for instance, of like St. Louis there, and when it was in the city was an actual star city with the star fort in it, and that you found modern day today, like a bunch of us in the community. There's been a few videos done of it. This water tower that's left over in the old St. Louis in the center of it, and that it's just this giant Romanesque huge tower. That's,
Be able to bring up a picture of that tower.
yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't have it on.
Guess what they're building there now? Guess what they're building there now at that tower? They are building the new United States Geospatial Agency that does all the LiDAR mapping for the whole world. They're building it right there at that tower, right? Like just on that block.
Wow. I was going to ask,
U.S. government took it all over.
What do you think the end of this is? Not the end, but you know, the result of all these earthquakes. What do you presume is going to happen?
Well, on the earthquake angle, like for instance, with the earthquakes next to the star forts and at the pinnacle tips of each one of these things, it's got to be some kind of very low frequency or lower, ultra low frequency or extremely low frequency, hence the 300 miles long.
Sorry, just momentarily paused it to give some, I guess, oh goodness, clarity to the audience, some back reference of what I'm going to be showing here in a minute. I'm going to be in the top screen here, the Alchemist minions. This jar with electrolysis of copper and zinc ormus that I'm going to be harvesting the top layer of the monoatomic material out of the jar and collecting it into an empty jar or bottle right next to it there. And once that is done, I will introduce a couple drops of my blood into the electrolysis reaction, and we will be live demoing some blood alchemy experiments and the fascinating real reaction that happens, and I'll be able to see. But enough of that for the meantime. Let's listen to this epic information with Dutch, Luke, and myself, and Stellium 7 joins in shortly into it.
And that, but with the earthquakes in general, that there's actually nobody's going to believe this. I've showed this in a video, but I will show it again when we do another longer live. Starting off the Antarctica, there's the tower. Yeah, there's the tower.
Yeah, this one right here is the tower. I'm not going to play it because I don't know the video. I don't want to get copyright strikes. Yeah, and for just a little what's going on, we are live on Autodidactic on Andreas Surdis, my BurnEye channel, my Crypto Alchemist. I'm on my Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. And next time we'll also be live on your Twitch, where you constantly have your model running your active forecasting measurement or live.
The G word. It's the G word. It's the forbidden globe word. But now, hey, you know what? I could address it right now, actually, just so because I know our audience overlap and that there's people that are all over the board and they want to know where I stand, and we can just bury the hatchet right now. And I was joking about it earlier, but I can stand by it. I think I could present evidence to show it that Earth
100%. Actually, I got to pause you 1 sec. Right before you start, I have an announcement to make. I officially am a trash can earther. It is both flat and round, and it is also the hypercube, essentially. And now
he beat me to the punch. He beat me to the punch that Earth is flat all the way around, and that I think I could prove this.
Right.
That there's think of a diamond. Think of a princess cut diamond. Okay. Now I can't prove this visually yet with some kind of thing launched into supposed space, but that the continents themselves, guys, that we can take and fold Earth like a piece of origami. And that we'll find that Earth is faceted like a jewel, almost like a floating jewel in space or whatever. That it comes to points. not like a coronavirus or something. I hate to say the C word and get you banned, but like a diamond or something, like Princess Cut diamond, and that there would be sections of Earth that are flat and other sections that are round, but that it comes to points and the continents, guys. Okay, what I was going to tell you, and there's no easy way to tell you this. Earthquakes are striking down below the pinnacle tip of each continent. And what I found is that each continent, like for instance, Antarctica, when you look at Antarctica, you see the ice shape and stuff, but you have to zoom out to see the plate boundaries. That Antarctica itself is in the shape of a pentagonal star fort, the entire continent, the entire outside edge of Antarctica. But to see it, you have to back Earth out about a planet away to see it. I found it by the earthquakes striking below the tip of Antarctica, and it spreads to the next plate and the next plate, which Burn, you've seen my video showing those plates, and that the earthquakes are spreading from plate to plate to plate. It's got to be some kind of wireless power that's going from plate to plate to plate. Right. It's got to be.
You said something there, like, that just made me think of something, which is that it's like we were talking before the stream. Like, I think everything is more complex than we imagine. We're simple, right? So this is just my opinion on it, and I'm not judging anyone that has a different opinion, because we're all talking about things that are nuts in the face of the consensus. So it doesn't really matter what shape we think the Earth is. But I think that there's like this element of complexity which increases. So whatever we imagine, it's something we can't imagine. So arguing over whether it's round or flat or whatever, like you say, when it comes to something that is round that is flat, all the way round, like
here's the thing. There's no sense of ever arguing, because both models literally physically work, and now there's like an equal or large enough percentage of consciousness believing and existing in each model, and that like they both all simultaneously can't be proven wrong and do coexist each other. It's like it's just senseless, and accept the multiverse.
Well, this is what I mean about complexity. So, for example, we imagine it as either, round or flat. But as we were talking before the stream, what about this notion of it being something, something further, like a hypersphere with multiple dimensions? So we perceive it as a 3D object when it's actually something much more. Well, if you expand upon that theory, the idea that we live on some kind of simplistic plane in itself is erroneous, because we know, even from science itself, if we look at things like the double slit experiment, we have evidence that consciousness affects reality. So if you guys don't know, the double slit experiment is they fire a photon through a sheet when nobody's looking, and it behaves like a wave. But then when they put it some kind of camera to record the action, it behaves as a particle. Now that same principle could be affected to you, because if you look at a game, you guys might have seen before, a view of a game from above. So what the character views is loaded, but what the character can't view isn't. So whilst you're looking forward, you see all these trees and buildings, but everything behind you is not there until you turn around, and then it's loaded. Well, reality is kind of the same. So when you're not observing it, it doesn't necessarily behave in the same way as when you do observe it.
So this is a well-established scientific fact, right?
About the image right here.
Yeah.
I got this right here is supposedly an image captured of the electron movement of a hydrogen around a hydrogen atom or photon or electron cloud of a hydrogen atom, like sacred geometry. It's just higher dimensional geometric.
I noticed in that picture around the outside edge of the sphere of that. Okay, look at the top left-hand side of there, or the far left-hand side.
It's like these 4 holes, isn't it?
Okay, do you see the overlapping spiral nature of that? Okay, that same pattern is something that you have drawn, and we were looking at on one of your T-shirts, which I'm not getting mystical. I'm not getting occult. I'm getting scientific, and just with cymatics, that the shape that you just showed is, there it is on a shirt right there. Okay, this is the famous flower of life. And the flower of life is decorated across
seed of life with this amount. And I call this design the weed of life, because it is the seed of life.
Yes.
And
yes.
I don't have any merchandise. Right.
It's across every ancient Egyptian tomb is painted with the flower of life. But that you see that all the way down at that microcosmic level, down at the level of the supposed picture of the, what was that, a hydrogen? Is that what you said? Hydrogen?
Yeah, I believe that's atomic hydrogen, the electron cloud of an atomic hydrogen molecule. And this,
you can see the edges of the flower of life on the edges. Now it goes into a spiral shape, which becomes harder to see three-dimensionally in the atom there. But
right. Okay, so this one here is definitely H atom orbitals. I believe it was the Sapphire project that was able to capture these, like 1 by 1, 1 by 2, like this as they go through. Like, it's pretty insane how light hydrogen is turning from wave to solid to these geometries of formation, I guess. And
are you familiar with Mr. Fix-It Rick's work?
Oh yeah, he's Mr. Fix-It Rick. Rick hosts the Keshi Foundation Zooms every week.
Oh, he does he?
Oh yeah, he's epic.
Okay, old video I just dropped into the. I dropped a link to you. It's one of his old videos, which he actually was playing. It's the spinning plasma ball experiment. And in the spinning plasma ball experiment, which we can show it at a later time because this video is only supposed to be a few minutes long, that when I get on and do this longer live with you guys, we will watch that video from Mr. Fix-It Rick, which shows a standard plasma ball spinning, okay? And the plasma ball is filled with gas, and the electrical field inside is creating the tendrils of plasma going out. You put your hands on the outside edge of the plasma ball. Now, when Mr. Fix-It Rick takes that plasma ball and he hooks it up to an actual physical rotating motor going several thousand RPM, okay? And he brings it up to speed at several thousand RPM, and what happens is something amazing. The tendrils that are normally just going around on the inside of the plasma ball that we would all just put our hands on the outside and would, of course, go to ground and try to seek our hands. Instead, it becomes organized inside of the plasma ball. And it forms its own North Pole, equator, and South Pole, the plasma, as it's rotating. As he rotates it, it brings it into, he didn't call it anything. He didn't name it. I called it hyper oscillation, that he took the already electrically oscillating plasma and then brought it to speed, 3,000 or 4,000, and it broke into separate magnetic fields inside of the plasma ball. It's amazing. It's the most amazing video. And I dropped it in chat if you want to go look at it yourself, or I don't think you want to show it on here just because we don't have permission to show it. But it's for your consideration, guys. You should go. There it is. I think he'll let us play it because he let me play it on my stream. I asked him for permission to play it, and he said, okay.
I should. Oh, I shared the wrong one. Sorry. All right. Temporarily pausing it just to interject and state that Mr. Fix-It Rick is one awesome man, and I have been in contact with Rick, and we will in the next year be having Rick on and going deep into the Keshi technology as well as the spinning vortex and spinning plasma. And what Dutch is pointing out here is such key information. It's next level, really. But yeah, let's continue on. And I'm pretty sure I find the video here and play it. If not, I'll do that in a few minutes. Hey, Exotic Propulsion, Jeremiah, good to see you, brother. I'll send you a link to join if you're up for it.
And it breaks apart into 3 separate magnetic fields inside of the plasma globe. It's amazing. Then something even more amazing happens, that it starts to pulse. And you'll see it as he brings it up to speed. It's one of the more amazing things. It's proof that now what I think, if he would have taken this thing and had some kind of scale next to it, we had a 1 gram weight on it, I think it might even be generating anti-gravity. I think so. I think it would generate anti-gravity, what he's doing. Wait till you see it. It's amazing. Again, the plasma forms into its own North Pole, equator, and South Pole by just rotating it fast.
What's interesting is that image that we were talking about before looked like it had, the cymatic pattern looked like it had 4 poles as opposed to 2, didn't it?
I sure did. There it is. Okay. So as he brings it up to speed, it immediately seeks out its own naturally, it just forms into its own North Pole. Okay. You see it. It goes straight to the top. Then as it goes faster, the tendrils organize. See the magnetic field break apart? See it? And it starts to form into a North Pole, an equator, and a South Pole. See it? It's literally, you're visualizing the Earth's magnetic field, whether it's flat or round. It's the most amazing video. And I shared this a few years ago. And there's all sorts of inventions that come off of this, as well as just proof on things.
I see what you're saying right there. Like, look at that.
Hyper oscillation, I'm calling it. When you take something that's already electrically oscillating and then physically rotate it fast. So hyper, right? Oscillation.
And then the plasma, exactly.
You add that to the rotation of like the universe. Does that mean that we could be looking at natural versions of the in forms of like stars and stuff?
Oh, I think this is what's going on inside of the quote unquote center of the Earth and the center of the sun. There's got to be. And I bet you that on a super huge scale, it would be super hot. I mean, obviously that's electricity in a 5 volts.
I don't want to be really basic about this, but we've all slid across carpet as a child. We know what friction does.
Yeah, it's got to produce heat. It has to. And then I would imagine this would vaporize pretty much anything.
Just that spinning against the air itself is going to be creating a shit ton of friction.
Yeah, because this is a vacuum. That's a vacuum sealed neon gas, right?
Yeah. Wow. Fucking hell. Well, that just shows then, doesn't it? You can
see. So when you rotate a plasma at a certain RPM, it breaks apart into its own magnetic field and generates North and South Pole on its own. Perfect north, obviously, off the tip. And then there's your equator and your tropics, and it's pulsing down to the South Pole.
Plasma usually. Do you know?
So awesome. What was that? I didn't hear.
What temperature is plasma usually around?
Well, see, there's different types of plasma and cold fusion, and the blue, purple, the UV, the cold plasma is usually around room temperature-ish or like lower, and then your hot infrared, orange, yellow, or orange reddish, higher density waves and fields go.
Totally. And power too. The power behind it would also, of course, you put more voltage and amperage into something, it can also increase the temperature. Plasmas, like ionospheric plasmas from HARP, for instance, and other high frequency radio wave projects, can get up into the multi hundreds of degrees, 500 degrees, and so forth. 500 Fahrenheit, what is that?
Sorry. I gotta pause and interject. Shout out to Ben Waking Up Analogs here in the Zertis chat, which reminds me to bring up the Crystal City in Missouri, Moberly, and Dutch. If you don't know of Waking Up with Analogs, Ben's work, he's just epic on Twitter on documenting hundreds, if not thousands, of 1800s newspaper articles, publishings of like the giants, the ancient Antiquitech all throughout America, and covering just epic amounts of stuff. And before we went live, you told the story of Moberly and the Crystal City that's around you. Can you tell it again, please?
Oh, oh, certainly. Hey, you know what? This is going to be a fun little thing here. Okay, in Missouri, there's a place called Moberly, Missouri. And back in the 1800s, I don't know what year in the 1800s, but certainly it was in the 1800s, the New York Times ran a story in April of that year. It wasn't April 1st, so it wasn't technically an April Fool's joke or anything, claiming at the bottom of a coal mine in Moberly, which there are a series of coal mines around Moberly, that they were down several hundred feet in a shaft, and they broke through a wall, and they found a hidden underground city that was huge, and it was crafted, they said, for giants. And the story ran in the New York Times in April of whatever year in 1800. They then came out and retracted the story and said it was a hoax. They didn't call it an April Fool's joke because April Fool's jokes didn't exist at the time, really. So they retracted it and called it a hoax. And
just
now
magically retracted it some way, somehow, like all of the story. Sorry, I just gotta put this one part in of how it literally every story, including the Kincaid Grand Canyon pyramid complex. And this is Isis Temple Pyramid there. And this picture still has the giant cave opening in the center. It's now actually walled up. The U.S. some government agency walled that up in the middle of these random badlands. No inner city to see there. Anywho, back to the Crystal City that's supposedly around you.
Before you continue, I'd just like to bring up the fact that what we were talking about Britain apparently being built by giants. So there is a few things that correlate with this, which are great. So when I was researching the comet in one of my videos, you might have watched it, I'm not sure, but there was some Anglo-Saxon poetry that talked. And when this comet struck, they wrote specifically, the work of giants lay in ruin. And, you know, the people that could have rebuilt it were dead. Right. And if you look, there was a £2 coin in Britain that had written on it, standing on the shoulders of giants. You might have seen Paul Cook talking about how the cliffs of Dover themselves look like they are degraded limestone blocks that have turned into this material over time. Well, you correlate all this together. You've got Gog Magog, the last giant, when Brutus apparently came into Britain. That Britain was controlled by giants, and Gog Magog was the last one that Brutus slayed. Welsh folklore will talk about giants in Britain. And if you look up the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, you've got these huge structures that they literally call the Giant's Causeway because it's incredible. So I think this correlation, and in fact, you know, there is an even bigger one, which you might have heard of the Bible with the Nephilim, the way that angels mated with man and created a race of giants, right? Well, what is England called? Engleland. Engle is the Saxon for angel, angel land, land of the angels.
That is, guys, we're gonna, when we do the next live, and this is something for other people to tune into, we'll be able to show that what I found is that England itself, the UK, Great Britain, and Ireland are, well, every single continent. Paul Cook might be, not it might be. Paul Cook is.
Yes, this is a restream. Sadly, Dutch wasn't able to join us tonight, but Jeremiah will be joining us shortly, and I will be doing the live alchemy demos as we go.
Changes. Imagine if you did that with wet cement, okay? Something that's going to move into position, and then when you leave it, it will set, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that happens with mud. We see an earth turn to, right?
Yeah.
Vibration stop its position. So if you were to have a vibration under the plates that we live on, you would create a series of cymatic patterns all over that entire plate.
You're absolutely right. And that's exactly what we're finding. And there's a military base built in the middle of each one, which means somebody knows. Oh, and a Facebook data center, which we'll talk about show at some point. Real quick, I'll wrap up the Moberly story. The Moberly thing, they were down at the bottom of this coal mine here in central Missouri, and they found this city that was built by giants. And in the story, it talks about people with elongated skulls found wrapped up, curled up in cocoon shape, or what I would imagine to be like kind of, huddled up or something like that. Anyway, my wife, doing separate research on horticulture, trying to find Missouri native plant pictures to print out for our decorations in our house, found in the Missouri Historical Society 2 weeks ago, which I'm going to show in a video. It's on her laptop now, and we will show it when we go live. There used to be painters, expert painters, that would do what were called panorama pictures. And they would paint starting at the head of the Mississippi waters all the way up north in the North United States, and ride a small raft all the way down to New Orleans and paint the entire landscape along the way. And then that would be in a huge roll that they would take around and sell people to watch roll by in what they called panorama moving pictures, but not like movies. Like, just this thing would scroll by basically and show you landscape pictures. Anyway, my wife found this thing 2 weeks ago where it starts here in Missouri on the Missouri River and heads north by northwest up towards the Northwest United States. And as they're going at the start of the panorama, there's a cave scene that's been very detailed painted of 5 guys walking through a cave, and the cave is huge. And there's all kinds of giant crystals growing out of the sides of the cave, which we now know is Crystal City, Missouri, and the Crystal Cave that's here, which is just south and next to Moberly, Missouri, where they found the giant city underground, supposedly, but they called it a hoax. Anyway, in this painting, it's undeniable. The guys are holding lanterns.
Sorry, I was failing miserably at trying to get.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
On there.
In the cave painting, there are elongated skull skeleton mummies painted by this artist who went into the cave system with the explorers who went, and there's a whole detailed description of what they discovered. And what they discovered were a series of mummies and they're painted as being taller than the guys. They got the English guys, they're holding lanterns. Here's the mummies next to them. Each one's got a super elongated skull, and they have to be at least 10 or 15 feet tall, guys. Each one. And it's painted out, and it's in a panorama picture that was taken all over the United States and shown as what they discovered on the voyage northwest. And it was a guy tied with Lewis and Clark who was doing the exploration. So it's official. It's not like it's just some fanciful painting. This was shown, and it's in the Missouri Museum now. I have links to it. I will get to it. We'll show it live. But what it proves is Moberly.
Do you have any?
The original story in Moberly about the elongated skulls and the tall people that they found and the crystals, because the two are right next to each other. And then that proves giant people were here. And that means we already know this. So anyway, it's pretty intense.
Like, right? Like, literally, there's like hundreds, thousands of giant stories, pyramid stories, burials of these elongated skulls. Like, it's these reset, long lost higher civilization on like macro scale. Like the work you found, Dutch, of like literally, like we got to do an in-depth one on Guan Peng Dong or whatever that one is, and like it's like just a giant pentagon, giant Starfort Island in the middle of Micronesia, Macronesia or something. It's like
on the side of on Micronesia, they named a Nan Medal was the name of the place.
Yeah. So that's like the little city that's officially like really old and like built from basalt from like the ocean up by man somehow, megalithic out of the sea, like different than Saudi Arabia building.
Everybody, hold up, stop the train, because 1 week, I want to say it was 1 week after you made the video, you guys started talking about Nan Madol. The National Weather Service and the international weather agencies came out and suddenly named a typhoon that was going towards, it hit Japan, Typhoon Nan Madol. And they did this just a few days after you did your video on Nan Madol. Go look up the Japan Nan Madol hurricane. It just hit this past year, and they named it Nan Madol.
Hey, right, yo.
So we have to have a Nan Madol episode. And an Angkor Wat one, but a Nan Madol one, especially because it looks like they just recognize this little tiny Starfort area of it as being insanely old, man-made island out of the sea. Megalithic basalt created it, very ancient, but in reality, the entire massive island of it all, most of it covered by like lost ruins, but like forest now, but the entire structure is probably created artificially or something, like, you know, somehow, like on this mega giant scale. It's like it's insane the more you look at it. And that
I can confidently tell you and your viewers, if you go open up a copy of Google Earth or any other map and go type in Micronesia and look at it, you will see that Micronesia is a giant pentagon. It's indisputable. I had skeptics show up and say it was just natural. But then you have Nan Madol on the east side, and it's made up of hexagonal basalt, and it's in the shape of a pentagon. And it can't be, because just to the north of there, guess what we did? The United States came in and did the Bikini Atoll nuclear tests on all those other atolls all the way around Micronesia, the Marshall Islands and so forth. We nuked the shit out of, pardon my language, we nuked the hell out of all those other islands going just to the northeast of Micronesia. That's where we did all of our nuclear tests. Just by chance, right? Sorry, guys. It's just I get fired up about it because they nuked it.
You're repeating like this knowledge you're discussing. How many times they've destroyed these ancient sites that are like just next level. We can't even comprehend them, yet alone build them right now. And then it's like, oh, actually, when we nuke something, that's what we destroyed. Oh, when there's the Korean War, Vietnam War, actually they bombed Burma and like these crazy pyramids and these jars and like freaking bowls that are 10 times the size of like a house. Made for giants, all sorts of crazy stuff all over. We never see it. They just destroy it.
Russia just did it. Russia just invaded. You guys have all seen the old maps. Where is Tartaria listed on most of the old maps, guys? It's north of the Black Sea. And we know what's north of the Black Sea. That's where...
Yeah, Little Tartaria starts at Crimea, essentially.
You've entered my category here.
And then Luke can...
Thank you. Right. Okay. All right. Is my volume okay, by the way? Someone commented saying it was low. And
yes, sir, it is.
Right. Sweet. So yeah. So I've done quite a bit of research into the old history of Tartary and the way that it expands. So if anything, I'm probably the guy to ask about this. So what you've got, what it seems, is there's 3 regions. So first, in the northeast is where we were talking about yesterday. We've got the Prester John, who is seemingly a Christian. So this was a Christian nation in the northeast of Siberia-ish region above China. And they were apparently settled from 1290 AD as a Christian nation. And they were the ones who were oppressing Genghis Khan's people. So Genghis Khan rose up against Prester John, took over this whole empire, and that is how Genghis Khan first came to power. So Muscovy is a separate power that is part of this empire. Now, it seems to be interchangeable. Sometimes Muscovy takes over, sometimes Tartary takes over. We know that Tamerlane in the 13 to 1400s, so this guy was the general, so he wasn't the emperor yet, but he was the next in line. He was the general that was fighting all the battles for the Grand Sham. We know that he was attacked by Muscovy, and they attacked Astrakhan and Kazan. So we know that those places, which are now settled firmly in Russia, Kazan is Tatarstan, so you can you can learn about that if you want to go down there. So they've retained some of their Tartarian heritage. But the point being that Muscovy, which is what we know as Russia today, they have taken over all these lands that used to be Tartarian and have pushed them under the Russian Empire and basically said this is one thing. Whereas history will tell you that this has been controlled by Tamerlane in the 13 to 1400s, with his empire being at Samarkand, which is just a bit south of where this map's pointing. You know, you've got the Tartarians that took over the Chinese empire in 1644, just after the Qing dynasty. And again, they've been written out of history. You've got the Kazaki Tataris that apparently fought Ishmael in 700 AD, and they've been written out of history. You've got the Crimean Khanate that took place in a battle about 1739 against both the Muscovy Russians and also the Ottomans, and they've been written out of history. It's nuts. But if you do look for these things, you'll find these small Wikipedia articles. For example, you'll find the Crimean Khanate is listed as this tiny force that was in that battle I just said, 1739, I think. And if you go into that, you realize that that was actually Little Tartary. That was the lesser Tartarians fighting during this war. So they've been written out at every level. It's not just Russia, it's global. So they have been written out of our history.
That is indisputable. It's absolutely indisputable that there is and was a global, or at least seafaring civilization that was at least modeled around Tartaria, which is on the map. And I've even shared it with my viewers, so this shouldn't be controversial for anybody to talk about. Found auction house map for, I want to say it was $84,000 sold at auction.
Right here, that is Tartaria. You see, it's from. This is the Caspian Sea, and you got northeast, what is now Siberia, and the North Siberian Arctic Ocean, and going into the Barents Sea over here. This whole area, and that this was what seems like a reprint, like basic mid-50s explanation where the coast is off and everything, but it actually has really fascinating
you know what, one thing
that I'll let you take over the name part here, Luke.
Right, what was that? Well, I won't get to names because I don't have the translations hear me, but something that Dutch said there about the Vikings, as in seafaring. You didn't say Vikings, but you made me think of the Vikings, right? Seafaring. We know the Vikings apparently went to America, etc., etc. Okay, what do we think of a Viking as? Just picture what you think of. Well, you think of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed giant, right? And you go, it sounds a little bit like an Aryan, doesn't it? Right. So we go back to that map we saw yesterday when we were talking about it. We saw that thing about the Danites being called the Danes of the Dark North, the Danes of the Dark North. And the Danites apparently went to Ireland. Now they're associated again with the Vikings. So what we've got to start realizing is that the Vikings, the Aryans, because think about the blue hair, blue eyes, Aryans, Tartarians, barbarians, Hungarians, Bulgarians. This is where it's coming from. There is a huge connection. This seafaring nation of the Vikings is actually the remnants of this Tartarian empire, which is also the tribes of Israel. So if we go to the Danites, they were expelled from this area in the north. The Danites were expelled and they left. And the Danites, the Danes, the Vikings, it's right there. It's literally in the name, and you don't realize it. And then you go, oh wait, but the Aryan, the blonde hair, blue eyes, that are supposed to be a perfect race. Oh shit, the Aryans, the barbarians, the Tarians, and that's where it comes from. It's right under our noses this whole time.
Oh, I agree. You know, there's actually,
and that they,
believe it or not, in the Bible of all places, guys, in the Bible, there's talk about the Galatians. Do you guys know about the Galatians?
No, tell us.
Oh man. Okay.
Please tell the
Paul writes a
story.
letter in the Bible to Galatia, and it's to the church at Galatia, telling them the rules and how they've either broke them or kept them. And basically, I got a wild hair up my ass and decided to go look up the history on the Galatians. And it turns out the Galatians were a red-haired people. Galatia was in Turkey. Okay. And they were a red-haired, freckled people. People who had freckles, they didn't call it freckles at that time. They call it blemished. But a red-haired, blemished people that were all in, they were tall. They were known for being extremely tall. And now get this. The Galatian people had moved down to Turkey in somewhere pre-Rome time. So this is a standard time frame, right? But pre-Rome time, the Galatians came from Ireland and settled down in the Turkey area. And the red hair thing and the tall people, and they said they were seafaring. This is now in the legend, and that they also spread out other places, which then of course fits with every other continent around the world.
So Turkey, this is weird because Turkey is just above Assyria, right? So if you take Assyria, which is the old name for Britain, was called Albany or Albion at one point. So that name comes from in 1650 BC, an Assyrian king decided to fucking leave Assyria and go sail somewhere else, and he went to Britain, which is why they named the place after him. But if you go into mythology, Albion was actually a giant whose corpse is Britain itself. Like, he died and we're living on his back, right? So you take the two things into, with a pinch of salt, and you mix them together. Perhaps, like you say, if Turkey was covered by these ginger giants, perhaps Assyria was also, and perhaps he's the person that's gone over to Britain to create this race of giants. Again, if you look at Gog Magog, who is the apparent last giant to be killed in Britain by Brutus when he arrived there. Welsh folklore will show you that Britain was previously inhabited by giants. Well, you'll see that he's depicted as a ginger, tall-haired Pictish man, Picts resembling Tartarians, but he's a giant ginger man who is killed before humans can move into Britain. So don't you think that connection between Turkey apparently being inhabited by tall ginger people, then Assyria just below Asia Minor, which was Turkey at the time, apparently has Albion who comes over with giants, and then Gog Magog, one of his descendants, is killed and he's a tall ginger giant.
We cannot overlook that. You're on to something huge here, guys. This is all live. Just so you know, this is not scripted. So we're kind of going down a little rabbit hole here that I think needs to be go down. Check it out. Do you guys know the Uyghur conspiracy from China? The Uyghur people? You know about this?
100% improv. We are 50 minutes in.
Huh. Wow, that went by quick.
A 5 minute thing.
Wow, that went quick. God, wow.
Just a little pretext. Great. 1 hour. We're almost 1 hour in when we were supposed to do 5 minutes. 3 legends, because Bert and Ernie are famous. And then we have the unbelievably amazing, and the mainstream media tries to slander you like no other, Dutch, and it's just insane when those the clips like BBC Italian ladies being like, oh, he gave us the warning, we were able to sleep in the cars, he saved us, and then they literally exchange people you from the internet, cut your internet, your power, the little power to your place 112 times today. It's insane, and it's because you've discovered this code cycle.
It's been insane. The 112 power outages, I have witnesses and technicians even now who are willing to testify in court. It's crazy. I stepped all over all kinds of toes. I turned down a Halliburton sponsorship. You guys might not know about this story, but all kinds of stuff, man. All kinds of. We'll go down that road too about what I turned down and what happened to me because of it. What's what's in the world of geophysics and geology that's total bullshit, which is pretty much everything now that I'm finding. That's what they didn't want me to find. But no, real quick, before I forget, this red hair thing, man. Okay, the Uyghur people conspiracy, the China conspiracy. Why are they running? Why? This is not me, guys. Just so you know, I didn't come up with this. I saw several videos on it, and it's about the heritage of the Uyghur people, and that the Chinese are rounding them up for some kind of breeding project.
Uyghurs. I just, sorry. Yeah, no, I get what you're talking about. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Yeah.
No, you're not mispronouncing it. It's just a language difference. But I was sat here like the Ouija people, and I was like, oh, the fucking Uyghurs. Yeah. No.
Yeah. The Uyghurs. Yeah. Now, get this. They're all red hair, blue eyed.
No.
And yeah. And they all come from Turkey originally.
No, right. For real. This has got to be it.
And China's got to be getting them for genetics. It's got to be they're trying to get that elongated skull.
Right. So in England, you've got Irish people. They'll it's just a bit of a stereotype, a racist stereotype that they'll be ginger in it, right? The Danites left Serbia and fucking came over to Ireland, and they're the people connected to the tribes of Israel. Do you know what I mean? They're the same Uyghurs, so of course they'd be ginger. Well, it just makes sense, doesn't it?
Definitely. It's red hair, blue eye, or green eye.
Oh, and like you'd be really interested in this stuff that like I've got. So there's an old historian that unfortunately, he's getting on a bit now. He's in his late 80s, 90s, but he unearthed all this shit to do with King Arthur and how he went over to America and stuff. And one of his brothers is called Prince Madoc. He went over to Mobile Bay. Now, if you search up Mobile Bay, you will find a monument to Prince Madoc, but they have misdated it to 1170, but it's actually 570-ish that he should have been there. But the point being that it says that, this guy came over and he left behind with the Indians, the Welsh language. Now, if you go into Welsh Chronicles, they depict meeting ginger Indians that could already speak Welsh.
Yes, that's here in Missouri. And those Indian people are said to be the mound builders that they supposedly had a civilization that went all the way up to the Great Lakes, they told us. But you're absolutely right. This red hair thing can't be overlooked because it would be a evidence of a global traveling all the way from central Russia or China all the way over to the United States. The only thing missing would be South America to have the red-haired people.
Oh, we know we got the mound building culture. That red-haired people, and often a second row of teeth as well, or a sixth finger or toe with these like the red-haired giants in general. Just gotta put that fact out there. That's adding it in.
It's really funny because I remember when I had one of my awakenings, so I've always been one of these people that laughs when you watch South Park. You know how there's the whole Jewish kind of, laugh at the Jews kind of thing. I've always been like, just laugh along with that. I've never considered that Judaism might be like the way. So when
anti-Semitism.
Oh, sorry, the connection's gone a bit. Oh, I lost you a bit there. What did you say, bro?
Keywords get mentioned and things get shut down.
Oh shit! Oh
right. Every time.
Oh right. Okay.
So yeah, 1 hour in. We got nobody has joined. Not Paul, not Campbell, not Zertis. This has been excellent for so far. We got a future full plan with Paul Cook, Campbell, Zertis, Dutch, and welcome back, of course, on the 14th Valentine's Day date, where we'll be able to be pre-organized with the references to go further in depth with a lot of what we've been explaining so far. Pretty funny. Luke, Ancient Historia, you're like, Bernie, how are you up already? No, I haven't slept yet, and I am now on probably 8 or 9 hours of streaming straight. So it's like I definitely am long past my bedtime. It's noon into the next day. I did with there's just so many good things going on.
Aren't we supposed to be doing
I'm
another
gonna let
3 hours?
you guys go along. What?
I said, aren't we
We
supposed
can
to
go
be
on
doing
all day if we
3
really
hours?
want to, because eventually what we're going to be doing, me and Dutch were talking ahead of time, and Dutch, do you have your Twitch on you, or can you be on your Twitch and currently log on to my Twitch, which we are also currently live on, which I should post the link in the live chat for everybody and the private chat for you, and that this is going to be a key part of integrating going forward is running Twitch streams. They'll be featuring like a multicast mixture of like some of the science experiments in the corner. All right, there we go. Not open double mic. Okay, we got the Twitch. Here we go. Posting it, then closing it. But you should maybe not open it and then have that same thing happen now that I think about it, Dutch. Anyways, next time we'll be integrating all the Twitches, and we'll be starting and keeping things running for multiple hours on Twitch ahead of time, like you already do have running on your Twitch. Or do you want to share your Twitch or show what you're doing on Twitch and how we're going to just do
Probably what I'll
more
do is
together on it all?
Oh, I'll probably be doing when you're like showing, for instance, just so people know what we're talking about. When he's doing like a live experiment that's running for 12 hours and I've got my 24-hour earthquake stream running, I want to put his live stream in the lower right-hand corner of my thing that you can click on or follow a link to, where you can click over and watch his live stream and so forth. And then when they're all doing stuff, it can appear on mine and mine can appear on theirs. And if we want to, I mean, it doesn't have to always be there, but it would just be something we can do together if we want. It's pretty cool.
Experimenting, connecting the StreamYard to the Streamlabs and running on the different Twitches, integrating them, and trying to create some sort of like original Weekend at Bernie's 48-hour where you got like 24 stream channels broadcasting 2 hours worth of stuff, and then like crypto news every on the top of the hour, the half hour, the weather, the forecasting, the cycle.
Well, I foresee that this could be used, for instance, like when an earthquake strikes and I show it live and I zoom in, like what I did in California a couple of weeks ago, and we find a star fort with a satellite array and a recycling center built inside of the star fort directly in the center. And there's been an earthquake right down below the center. And I'm showing it live. It gives, first of all, it gives like all you guys something to go look at. And it's live. You know what I mean? An earthquake has just struck below it that has caused damage in California. And you can start looking into it. That I can't go out there, and maybe you guys can't go out there, but maybe one of your viewers who lives right down the street, because it's literally a recycling center in the center there. You can like go there and drop off your trash and take a look at it and see what the deal is and measure it. Take an electromagnetic field measurement. That's something I want to send to Paul Cook. That I'll pay for it if he can't afford it or whatever. I will order him an EMF detector, a radio frequency smog detector, a Geiger counter, and all the things that he would need.
That shit to me, I will.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, we'll get one for you too.
So we're gonna be we're gonna set this up then on Valentine's Day. It's our date, right? You've committed, and we will have Paul, we will have Campbell, we will have Luke, and we will stop that one there. That is just over an hour in, and it's actually a 3-hour full interview. But we got Jeremiah with us. Welcome,
son.
Jeremiah.
How's the audio?
Good, sir. Good.
All right. Yeah, dude, that was a crazy, wild, epic call. We spun up a vortex of intellect and got into the nitty-gritty details about warping space-time and screwing with plasmas. dealing with the background field, and oh man, it was juicy. Some Star Trek stuff.
And you are referring to the 8-hour call you just finished earlier today.
Yeah, that's right. A private call between just a few of us researchers that are really heavily into trying and unravel this entire mystery. And it is a big mystery, I'll tell you that.
Isn't it, right? Like, and well, what did you learn? What were the highlights? If 8 hours sum up your 8 craziest discovery discussions of the day, if you don't mind.
Sure, let's get into some of the tangibility of this concept. Magnetism, we all know what it does. We don't think of it in terms of what it's doing to the space around the source of the magnetic field. We just think about what the magnetic field does to other objects, to physical matter, things that are ferromagnetic, paramagnetic, diamagnetic. And then there are all kinds of other fun quasi-stable states too that things can also be in terms of how they interact with and respond to a magnetic field. And what is a magnetic field anyways? Just a bunch of spinning charges basically coordinated all along the same axes so that their rotation, the direction that they're spinning, lines up and produces this big old thing we call a B field. And at a distance, when we try to measure the total field of a magnet, we call it the H field. So turns out though, if you make that field change its amplitude, if you increase it and decrease it and increase it and decrease it, or you modulate it back and forth, you can get a really funny response out of the localized space. And there are a couple of papers that go into detail about this. One of them actually, at the end of the paper, I love the final conclusion, which is increasing magnetic fields have been shown to increase the rate flow of time in the affected region. Paraphrasing that paper there. So they sum it up. If you have a continuously increasing magnetic flux, it turns out that time speeds up in that area. So that gives us a direct modulation over the velocity of light through a physical space. But the thing is, the energy levels for just a magnetic field alone are incredibly high in order to produce this effect. However, we discussed the geometries and mechanisms to make these magnetic fields produce incredible amounts of stress on the local space-time with much lower energy levels simply by assembling them correctly and then cramming them together into a very small space, a space that's way too tiny to contain that amount of magnetic flux without something else changing. And that's where the time comes in. So I haven't lost you yet. I'm not sure.
So the B field is where we're able to modulate time, essentially, is what you're saying.
It's basically where I'm going with this.
Now let's tie it into this plasma and spinning plasma, right?
Oh, absolutely. So I don't know if many people here know Stan Dale, but he told this most fantastic story about a fella he knew who had built something he kind of lovingly called the wedding cake. And reports from this guy who ran it was, he ran it in his garage. When he powered this thing up, and he had some kind of knife switch on there, he was powering it from some really high power amplifier. And this whole thing was allegedly reported to hover up off the bench from where it was sitting, levitate there a couple inches above the bench, but underneath it was extremely interesting. There was a gray, foggy, murky-looking kind of field that was fluctuating around. It was like light was being sucked out of that region. It just looked off like something was obstructing the view, something a bit opaque. You could have called it a jelly-like field. And so the guy's like, the guy that's operating this thing, he's, tilting his head, rubbing his chin, thinking, wow, that's a really strange looking thing that's going on underneath there, as if he wasn't already in amazement enough about the fact that it's levitating. So he grabs his broomstick and waves the end of the handle, the wooden handle, through this field on the bottom real slowly. And he describes it as feeling like thick, as if he's pushing the broom through molasses or something like that, viscous fluid. So Anyways, this thing gets out of control at some point, and he tries to shut it off. The breaker that he's got, this knife switch, it arcs over and creates this, arcs out. So it's still contacting. He can't shut it off. So his only response, he's still holding that broom handle. He thinks, well, in a very Tesla smashing the earthquake generator machine-like moment, he takes the broomstick handle and he swings it through that gray field underneath the thing as fast as he can. Huge arc blasts through that switch. All the lights go out in his house and on the entire block. Apparently, he blows the pole transformer, and the thing
really
fluctuates and clunks back down to the bench. So this funny description of a gray plasma-like field, this ultra strange, murky, viscous substance that formed underneath the thing that was levitating, speaks to a change in the physical nature of space-time itself underneath that thing, as if the laws of physics were being modified in some way, shape, or form so that photons don't respond the same way, so that things with inertia, like that broomstick handle, as they're being pushed through, are not in the same reference frame. You could say it was like time was flowing at a different rate there. Much, much faster underneath that thing.
The fact of this gray, murky, like plasma-like film, or like almost exoplasm, plasma stuff that, like, it's essentially between ether and our reality, and like the mist aspect, maybe. Could it just all be H2O between dimensions, different states of matter?
It very much is. All of those things. It's like something that's between dimensions. There are many words to describe it. The thing is, I don't know if we really have appropriate words to adequately describe this phenomena, but we could consider it from the point of view of, say, the constants of the universe as they are considered. And if we realize that those constants are actually biased in a certain direction already, just in our local part of the galaxy, in our local part of the universe, where we are here in the Milky Way on Earth, our physics is not the same as it is everywhere else in the universe. There are slight fluctuations, and one of the big misunderstandings was that everything should be completely uniform everywhere all the time. Well, that's absolutely not the case. In fact, it's impossible, or we couldn't have the scalar potentials that we do right now in our local space-time. Electrons would not be capable of possessing the same charge as protons, yet have an entirely different mass if the scalar potentials were not biased or pushed already towards the direction of the Schwinger limit.
I couldn't even fathom what reality and the density and what it would be like, say, maybe Saturn or Jupiter or one of their moons, or even what they call outer space and what's above us. Like, is it a plasma field? Is it is time different up there, as lots of the supposed cosmonauts and astronauts have testified, here and there over the years, leaked out, like, with just very strange experiences and stories of what they actually experienced up there.
Well, indeed, time is, we know for a fact that time is different on the ISS, for example, than it is on the surface of Earth. That's just well worked into even general relativity, that we can calculate out that difference in the rate flow of time for people in different reference frames, because here on Earth, we're in a gravitational field, but on top of that, it gets a bit complicated because the gravitational field isn't uniform, and the calculations are designed to actually explain a uniform gravitational field. We are in a gradient gravitational field. And that changes the nature of how that field interacts with the outside space. It allows things like frame dragging, for example, to be exaggerated because of the gradient. So Earth will always be a little bit ahead of where it seems to be if we stare at it from a distance away. It'll have rotated farther. It'll be a little bit, farther in progression along its day than where we're seeing it from. But those effects actually, they can be amplified and maximized at a very small scale on the interatomic distances. with use of complicated fields that we can generate in the lab. Where'd you go, buddy? Ah, so what are we looking at there, Burn?
All right, sorry about that. Just poured in a bit. I had a couple of drops of my blood in a little bit of water, so I poured that into this electrolysis experiment I have going on here. Zinc is the anode, so it's mostly zinc breaking down into that white monoatomic material, and it's connected to a couple of triple solenoid Keshi copper coils, as well as what I believe is a Lion reactor that I built, being a giant iron center core wrapped with copper, then wrapped with a zinc plate, and then more copper, then aluminum, and then more copper on it.
Well, the experiments are good, but I'll tell you to stop doing black magic with your blood.
Hey, not doing no black magic here. It's completely neutral. There's no intent. It's not a sacrifice. It's not wishing anything on anyone. It's just simply showing the replication of what Keshi states is the RNA or your amino acids, sorry, being reproduced off the cathode side. And it's going to be this different white film bubbling up above the water. So above the monoatomics now, you're going to see on the jar slowly, it's going to form above the water line, where the monoatomics, zinc and copper and stuff, is forming below the water line. Now there's also going to be this foam that is my amino acids, and essentially replicating your own DNA or your resonant frequency nanomaterial. And that's where people claim the Ormus, or like the Starfire Ormus, aka made from menstrual blood, and then others saying drink your urine or use urine and stuff. And it's like, well, yes, that is all Ormus, but you don't have to consume your piss, your poo, and your menstrual blood to get this material back in. No, you can just use a couple drops of your blood and reproduce it in salt water.
Well, that got weird quickly.
Yeah, there's been a lot of, on the dark side of the internet, there's been a lot of people that claim that and do it, make videos about it, and try to like promote it and come on my channel and promote it. I'm like, no, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, I agree with Anthony. Like, is there a secret base underneath your shed there, where you have all these like giant vats of BurnEye clones that you've been growing?
Does BurnEye have actual homunculus clones going? Not yet. No, not yet, but maybe someday. And yeah, that's need proper funding first, you know. I don't need random BurnEye.
Oh, that's not your goal. Good luck getting funded for that.
God, no. But cloning, it basically was what that's about.
It's an
don't need to mix my DNA with fish or bats or beavers or bears or anything else in between. But who knows? Have you ever seen that crazy Russian homunculus like from back in the day, where apparently
yeah,
it was like
I've seen those, man. I don't really care about all that stuff, man.
Right? Like, that ain't real. That I hope it ain't real.
I'm pretty confident it's not.
Oh, thank God. All right, so enough of the blood alchemy. We'll just let it keep going in the background on the side there, and do continue with your story.
Anyways, you're trying to boss up your channel, man, and your channel has been host to a lot of very big names, and that was definitely the key to making it work. And I know lately you've been kind of on the rails, trying to make stuff happen, basically trying to make sure that everything is taken care of. You've been a busy guy lately, but also kind of bummed out too, hey?
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to find a job, so it's like I can't book anything really in advance at the moment because like my schedule's in limbo because of this. Because until I actually have another job, because I got a job about 2 months ago now, and then lasted only like 2 weeks before the guy's main contract got canceled, and we all got laid off. And
Damn,
yeah,
dude. Yeah, I came on today mainly
rough.
because I read your post that you pumped out there for your viewers, and I was like, man, we should talk. Maybe we should talk on air because Bernie's best on air. That's what he does. Okay, we'll do it live.
That's what I do.
That's your style,
Uh,
and it's worked pretty well so far. It's managed to get your channel all the biggest names from everywhere else. Yet, the money's just not flowing in yet. So we've got to do something about that. And isn't it about time to launch your merch store or start selling these T-shirts? Like you've got to do something.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but it's like, so that's, I have to pretty much wait till the spring now because it's in storage, and in Canada it is very cold out and I can't really get to all my merch until spring again, and actually take it out and sort through it and get into it and all of that. So basically the goal is just to get a job to save up over winter so that I can actually afford the place for my silk screening equipment to set up again so that I can actually print new merchandise as well. So yeah,
it's just try to do it all yourself, and you're going to be in for a lot of work. But what about?
Oh, exactly. It is a lot of work. I've done it for 18 years. I was a silk screener up until COVID forced me to shut down and put everything into storage. And yeah, it's just like a double-edged sword. That's now it's like you're stuck paying to not be using your equipment, and it's just got to save up now to be able to start it all up again, and just a giant process. And yeah, it's gonna be a solid year's plan. But you're right that I need to get some sort of cash flow going, and that what I will look into over the next month. Yeah, I got to get on it ASAP, especially before Christmas, because with Christmas coming up, 'tis the season to get some sort of YouTube merch store going, and even if I'm not printing it myself, not getting rid of my current stock,
all that stuff is available. These companies will just take your print schemes and diagrams. You get to lay them out. They're very easy to use from these third-party applications online, and then they'll drop ship them.
Right? I know. I gotta do it. I gotta stop being the stubborn, like, sole proprietor guy for like the moment of headspace of like, you can have the best of both worlds, and you can lease some of your designs out and just make a fraction of it is better than making nothing, right? So
yeah, honestly, it's
better.
Things are moving so fast right now that it's not really worthwhile to try and set up and do everything yourself when you could realistically make more of your time, which is a limited resource, and allocate that to other people. If you only make 1/4 of the amount per sale of your cool merch, but your merch is actually freaking cool and people genuinely want it, not just because they want to support your channel because it looks dope, right? Which a lot of that stuff does. I don't see any problem with just outsourcing that. And if you make 1/4 the amount, but you don't have to do any work at all except for clicking a couple things on a screen, maybe once a day or
right,
a couple times a week. Like, what's the problem with that? You just gotta set it up. Exactly. Here's the difficulty: like, it's all in the setup, all the drop shipping and point to sale stuff. Everything is about creating a good interface for your customers, and it's a lot of work ahead of time. But since you're stuck inside for winter, it's a whole lot less work than digging all that stuff back out of storage and setting it all back up and restarting your print business. You've got good designs, man. You just got to get them printed. You've got to make them available for people because they look freaking awesome. And like, you should definitely take more time, more often, I say, to go through, especially during the daylight, and like show off all the cool stuff that you have there that you could print.
Yeah, right. Good call, sir. Good advice. absolutely what I need to be doing, what I've been planning on but haven't, and just gotta do, right? Like shirts like this, the power is in the people.
Yeah, that shirt's dope, man. Come on. How can you beat the Guy Fawkes mask?
Can't hate on that.
Oh,
Oh,
well, I said, how
Right?
can you beat the Guy Fawkes mask? And no, it's hard to hate on that because it definitely sends the message.
It truly does, especially of today and the polarized worlds that we live in, and the precipice of what's to come, and this singularity event of everything, right? Because it's like we're 0.01% of understanding of the universe, and then it's like boom, when you hit that point, it's everything all at once. And well, the upside down is now real, I guess, is how it'll become this quantum entangled fourth dimensional reality, or fifth 5D. What's your aspects on this portal anti-gravity AI breakthrough that is coming? And the
Well, I
alien
don't know.
as well.
I don't want to comment too much about the AI because it's always listening, right? And it might not like my opinions on certain things, or it might love my opinions on others. But I'm not here to please that thing. So I don't know what is all going on in the deep dark AI world. I have a pretty good idea what's going on as far as publicly. I mean, they've been making steady progression, small steps. One of the most interesting things, though, in terms of possible future computing technologies that I've seen recently was just earlier today, and I've seen a fantastic, amazing idea using plasma for computing because it is a dynamic, quasi-stable substance when it's electrified and when there are force vectors generated to cause a flow of charged particles. So plasma is absolutely phenomenal, and it could be used for far more than it's being used for right now. And the reason why I brought up that murky gray field underneath Stan Deo's wedding cake lifter earlier is because I wanted to talk about the possibility that we should consider that instead of thinking about it like a gray jelly-like field with nondescript characteristics, let's think about it like a cold plasma, a non-ionized plasma. Now that's going to be a super weird concept, but what it really is, when we think about the construct, sure sounds like an area of space where we have a huge amount of activity from virtual particles that are physically becoming real particles temporarily and then recombining, and they're flying all over the place. So that makes that area of space-time virtually inaccessible to other fields in order to travel through it because it's so perturbed. The energy density of that space-time is so high. And I think we've seen these effects in a lot of other places as well. Everything from the Hutchinson effect, where you have things kind of phasing in and out.
Like the ball lightning arc plasma, essentially.
Right. Think about some of the weird electrical phenomena from extremely high velocity charges that are being ripped apart in a tornado. We see tornado debris being able to penetrate stuff that there's just no way it could do, even at the velocities that it could be flying at with wind acceleration. There's just no way that you're going to get a piece of straw, say, to be sticking through wooden fence posts. It's not going to happen. So something is happening that's very strange around a tornado in terms of how it's moving the charges that is physically modifying the binding energy between molecules in that local space where that's happening. And so we see this in nature. We see this all over the place. There's lots of examples of very unusual behaviors and activities when fields interact and when things are moving in different reference frames. Sometimes charges moving really fast compared to, say, the observer, like you on the ground.
And that also then has me thinking of rotating monoatomics and dust. Well, the fictional story, or fictional program, His Dark Materials, but they call it quantum like angel dust, but is it monoatomic dust? Is that this quantum stuff? And then you mentioned super cold, where it's like it's crystallized, it's solid. Is it monoatomic dust interacting? And when you spin it at certain velocities, which circling back to the beginning of the stream when I was playing Dutch Sense and he was showing Mr. Fix-It Rick's spinning plasma vortex there, or plasma bulb, and its effects, that Mr. Rick Crammond on the Keshe Foundation Knowledge Seeker workshops has demonstrated one of their facilities where they were rotating 5 different monoatomics at several thousand RPM, and it appeared to create this bluish, grayish, hazy aura / field that was visible. So it's fascinating stuff here we're all bringing together.
The description of visible fields is one of the most fascinating parts about this all, because if we got Standale's wedding cake that generates this gray hazy field underneath it, and then we've got the USS Eldridge that generates a green thick fog around it, and then we've got Andy's experiment where basically you've got what looks like a jelly ball or like a jelly blob that's nearly 1.5 feet, almost 2 foot wide, that's wobbling back and forth and floats towards the chandelier, and as it passes through, it makes the chandelier appear as if it's melting, but as soon as it passes through, it goes completely back to normal. Like, there are a lot of examples of super strange visible phenomena happening with really high energy discharges and high impulse levels, but a lot of these things, they all follow a high Q system, meaning that you had built up a superposition of the magnetic field over time. There wasn't an instantaneous effect. The field had to be built up. The stress on local space had to be accumulated before these effects could emerge out of that local space. So a couple adjustments to the jars, looks like. So Anthony, plasma computing, similar to optical computing? Absolutely, they're directly related categories. In fact, it sounds like you may have already found the video. All right, that view looks pretty good, Burn. And there are a lot of other strange reports too. I mean, Tesla talked about in his lab notes seeing these luminous spherical floating objects around the room. He didn't describe them like ball lightning, not being brilliantly bright and hard to look at, but just like a hazy, luminous, spherical something floating around in different colors too. And this was also very, very interesting. And I think it goes right in concert with creating incredibly high field densities. It's like space is perturbed. It takes a period of time to restabilize, and it tends to drift around because there's generally an unbalanced charge or an unbalanced flux that takes place in the region where these things happen. So they tend to drift around and be pulled by wherever the balance of charge is to be found.
What fascinates me is the tube and glass and jars in this charge density that you're speaking of, and the different effects when you put plasmas into them. Specifically, Walter Russell's work on it and the reported transmutations he was getting. Are you setting up to do any such experiments, my friend?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I have a fun little experiment to talk about that I did when I was much younger. Had a fairly powerful neon sign transformer. I gutted the thing, took out the shunts, and I was getting roughly about 65 milliamps out of it, I think. I'm not sure how accurate my meter was at the time. It was one of the cheapies. But yeah, so this thing had a nice, hot, fat arc. And I set up a Jacob's ladder. Basic, fun to play around with Jacob's ladder. And I had, as a kid would do when he's playing around with high voltage instruments and building things, still in middle school or whatnot, I stuck a stick in the flame in the arc across the terminals of the Jacob's ladder. And I realized that with that stick, I could push the arc down the terminals and actually make it move against the direction it was going, or I could allow it to rise up. And I also noticed that if I balanced the stick right at its center point, or just slightly off center, that arc would hold it up. And it had an upwards pressure that was pushing on that stick, almost like there was a little breeze pushing on it. And it was much more significant than the amount of buoyancy that you would expect from heat, almost as if the arc had some physical density to it. But it was a hot plasma. And it turns out, yes, hot plasmas actually do have a physical density to them. They have a metallic state where they can even reflect light and scatter radio signals. So that's also a known phenomena, particularly for
Now,
dark
add
projects.
that though. Add that into the electrolysis aspect where you have it within the water, which is hydrogen and oxygen and your salt crystal mixed in, or your electrolyte crystal mixed in. And when you then form that hot plasma arc within the water, you're getting an exponential larger physical space density, as well as more physical atom matter to transmutate in your reactions.
Yeah, that's also a good point, because I think it's interesting in the Keshi system and what you're playing around with, that the only possible plasma that you can have with the energy input and with the refractive index of the fluid massively affecting the rate flow of time around that region. So you're affecting it at a very, very tiny surface level, almost like a single layer, just at the boundary of where your metallic conductor and its oxides are forming and where the liquid is. And so there is actually a type of plasma that's going on there, an ion exchange that's constantly active. And it's not luminous. You can't see it visibly, but it does have the ability to, even beyond the point where it's producing bubbles, obscure light and change the refractive index of that fluid that it's in, which is just salt water in your case. So there is actually a plasma that's happening there right at the surface of the electrodes. It's interesting too, though, because it's low voltage and it's low energy and it's a constant current. So it's quite a bit different than the warp field effects that we were talking about. Yeah.
And that Keshi essentially states that all ormus or GANs or monoatomic material is like an inactive plasma state, and then once you add charge to it, or like motion, rotation, and whatnot, you activate it, and from there it starts producing the field and these superconductive over unity effects.
Motion is definitely the key there. It seems to be the key for a lot of these systems. If we think about electromagnetism in terms of the way that those forces interact, we don't often consider how important it is that those fields be in the same place where they were originally positioned. If we physically move a system that's radiating electromagnetic waves back and forth along a certain axis, we change the way that those waves are being emitted. And it actually creates a third phenomena that has to do with time. So vibration, sound, ties into this heavily, and phonons, along with plasma and polaritons, can be combined to create
the resonant frequency aspect.
Right, exactly.
Putting that resonant frequency, the sound EM into it, correct?
A sound frequency, a resonant frequency? Well, you need a frequency that's going to operate well within the distance and spacing of your electrodes, and is going to be at least a harmonic of whatever molecular change that you're trying to make. So you want to try and stretch out the orbitals of the valence shells on the material that you're trying to affect as far as possible in order to rip the charges off.
I see. Sorry, just responding to Clitter78F. And to everybody, my apologies. I need to tackle my emails. Been neglecting them for the last week or two. I will make sure to check out the video your UFO video. Do you mind a brief description right now? What type? Are they the orbs? Are they like plasma orbs, right? Because there's that kind. Then there's like this Tic Tac. Then there's the TR3B style. And then there's like the swarms, and then the cylinders, of course. And then there hasn't been that many, classical disc-shaped UFO sightings recently. What's going on with that? What's your thoughts on that, Jeremiah?
It is interesting. I haven't really been keeping up with all the reports of new UFO sightings. It seems like it's almost impossible to sort through everything that's being posted these days. And now people can just download apps to basically, send their friends fake UFO videos where augmented reality helps stabilize some things for them. There's so much crap out there right now. It's super hard to figure out what's real and what's not, and you would have to devote a tremendous amount of time just to dig through the trash and find anything that looks like it's got some tangible effects. I would tell everybody all the telltale characteristics of how to spot these videos, but at the same time I'd also be educating the fakers on how they can make them even more hard to discern if we ever did look. So I think I'll not do that. There is a list though of the knowns, the common knowns of sightings of advanced flying craft. And they range everything from distortion of the way that light travels past these things being impossible to focus on, to having multispectral luminous outputs that specifically align with the wave bands of ionizable gases, and particularly there's a wavelength shift that we also look for. I'm not going to say what it is. So there's a lot of stuff to try and discern the fakes from the real stuff, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of fakes out there right now.
There we go. Sorry, computer was frozen while I was muted. Absolutely, there are. And I'm more going from the aspect or thought or perspective of that we have the Pentagon releasing all the Tic Tac UFO stuff, and then Ashton Forbes potential, what also looks like these Tic Tac / drone plasma style UFO technology, and that they have yet to officially acknowledge like the disc-shaped UFOs that appear throughout all of history and UFO UAP lore, as well as the cylinder ones, especially considering a recent interview with Gary Kinnan, and where he stated that when he hacked the NASA and got into whatever, that they buffed the images or scrubbed the images, that he saw a couple of them with these cylinder craft on them. And it brings up, this is clearly a controlled narrative sort of disclosure that they're doing, and that it seems that they're disclosing only their own higher technology and trying to disguise it as something else, while completely ignoring or covering up or just basically that of the historical disc craft and these cylinder crafts.
I think if you keep on traveling up the hierarchy, eventually people that go higher and higher up are going to be more aware of exactly who built it and what it is. I know that we have extremely advanced craft here in the States that our own military developed at just the, your basic civilian to military level. And then there are, of course, dark projects, which go far beyond what we consider civil defense. And a lot of those, they don't really answer to anybody, and they'll pass down enough to, say, the Air Force, the Navy, whatnot, in order to make it worthwhile for the investment. But ultimately, a lot of these contractors, they operate entirely independent of any kind of oversight. So the chances are we have a whole lot of very advanced tech that would be probably most of what we see in our skies. And I also think that we have visitors that are coming from probably outside of this solar system and stopping by. I don't know if we have trade deals with them or whatnot. I have no idea where they are located at home, what they look like, or what kind of personalities they might have. But I would say it's extremely unlikely that we're alone in this universe, or even just in this part of our Milky Way galaxy.
Absolutely. What was your take on? Oh goodness.
Yeah, that will be it.
Jack Sarfaki's APEC disclosure saying that he can verifies 3 separate alien races or something he's experienced, as well as the time traveling phone callers or something.
Man, I'll be honest, I really don't have much of an opinion on that whole thing. I can tell you that there's a lot going on in the email chains behind the scenes, and many things are being said, most of them inflammatory. So it goes the way that you would normally expect with a Sarfati email chain. Lots of people will be offended, and they'll be at each other's necks on their keyboards. So, yeah, I probably should not weigh in on that whole situation. But this guy, amazing stuff for this album.
Fair enough, but wasn't quite aware of it. And yes, thank you, Anthony Williams, for the link here. And this is the quantum computing.
Yeah, so this guy is literally using a change in the direction and polarization of plasma to make these plasma cavities tunable. It's like an entire box made of neon tubes, if you were to think of it that way, which is awesome on its own. But the fact that he's able to actually do processing with it is way better. And the way that he describes the plasma behavior as visceral and tangible, and having physical forces against it, and being able to be interacted with and blocking certain functions and wavelengths of light directly as a result of its energy density, is just nothing short of incredible. And I would say this is necessary viewing for anybody that ever wants to build a warp drive as well, because this whole plasma interaction with computing, optical computing as a category, it extends far beyond that. It goes into propulsion and into warp drives and all kinds of other fun stuff that you've got to know. And he does a great job at presenting and bringing up those points.
Right. I wanted just to pause it here and highlight the visible light spectrum and how small it is in the overall wavelength length spectrum.
Oh yeah, we see just an incredibly tiny slice, which, by the way, that visible light spectrum we showed on that chart is dramatically exaggerated in terms of its width. So it's much smaller than that.
Exactly right. It was spread out like an inch, but really it was like a millimeter in size in the overall scale there.
Yeah, you got to show it somehow. But
point that out.
Yeah, we see almost none of the entirety of the electromagnetic waves that are constantly interacting with us all the time. If we could see the universe and how it really looked, it would be so overwhelming. I don't think that we could realistically process all of that input. It was a very kind gift from nature that we only process a small percentage of that, which is necessary for our survival. That gives us more time to think about things, to run models in our minds, to compute complicated interactions, and make friends, and have a good time in life. Things that we would probably be far too busy with if we've seen everything.
Yeah, and can only imagine what like a dolphin sees or a bat sees, or like the whales, all these, like they're in different wavelengths, right? Just mind-boggling stuff just to ponder and comprehend. It is getting, oh my goodness, it's almost 5 a.m. And we are almost 2.5 hours in. Any closing words, Jeremiah, or last things, major breakthroughs or upcoming projects, or any other info from your call
I can
today?
conclude it this way, yeah. Well, here's the thing. I can guarantee you that time and understanding temporal mechanics will indeed bring us a total revolution in energy, which is ironic because it happened to be a few days before I found out that there is this TV series called Loki, and a character in it named Timely, and he gives a whole speech about how time is the future of energy. And when I seen that and it was so funny because I just got introduced to that particular episode on that show one day after we had an amazing phone call about literally using time pumping as an energy source to modulate the amount of Coulomb charge that will be observed from an outside reference frame from some stored charge on terminal plates. And how we would never deplete the charge, we would never use any energy to actually draw power into and out of the system, purely because we're not actually affecting the charges on their own. We're not killing the dipole, as Bearden says. We're affecting the rate flow of time in that region of space. And we're using a field that doesn't interact directly with the charges along the axes where they can be interacted with. So very interesting stuff. But then to see that the day after, it was just kind of like a big thumbs up from the media saying, hey, yeah, we're trying to talk about it too. It's going to come out. Somebody's going to say it. We better talk about it now. It's only a matter of time.
The truth in so-called fiction. And I'm going to have to go watch that now. I've been scrolling over it, but yet to click on it. And now you've piqued my interest. And if you haven't seen HBO's, I believe it's HBO, his Dark Materials, and their portal and time slits of the multiverse and dust, quantum dust. It's very, very fascinating stuff.
That series is amazing, absolutely. And there's a lot of analogs here to the way that we used to do things as a species and forgotten technologies. But let's just say there are other things that our eyes cannot see that we can train ourselves to learn to see and interact with that surround us. And the whole theme of that show was this girl, she can see something that none of the other people around her can see. It's one of those, geez, I can't remember the name of that book. I read this fantastic book. The kid is in a society where everything is black and white, but he's like the only one that can see the red color in the apple. I forget what they call it.
Really?
But it's a fascinating thing. And there are ways to see through the little peepholes in reality. It's like they're tiny tears in space-time, and you might be able to grab hold of one of them and just peer through for a moment and see something interesting on the other side. And you don't really get to go through, but you get to learn something that will change your life forever if you do. So we've had a few of those.
Right. And once you've seen it or experienced and had that changing moment, it's you never go back. And when they layer on over and over, it changes your perception of reality and the infinite possibilities that there really are.
Even Tesla talked about this. At one point in his lab, he was doing this really high power experiment, and he said that something had gone wrong, and he suddenly was thrust into the situation where he was able to look around and see 3 different time periods playing out simultaneously around him, depending which direction he looked. And that's where the reports of him describing the modern day cell phone, a small communication device, rectangular, larger, just slightly larger than a deck of playing cards, was able to was in this guy's front shirt pocket, because these clothes of the time that he was looking into the future and seeing, they had these front shirt pockets and buttons down the center, and he was holding this communication device that he could talk to anybody anywhere in the world on, with live face-to-face video communication. So he describes this crazy bunch of tech where he sees into this one time zone, and he comes back out of the whole thing afterwards. He's really sick afterwards too. So this experience messed him up. But apparently he was able to see, I don't know, sometime where we had smartphones that were basically rectangular. I have no idea when or whereabouts the timeline would have been, but
right about now.
Enough for him to talk about it. Like, enough for him
Go
to
on
tell
to
people who
Facebook
raised-
Messenger or WhatsApp or Skype or StreamYard like we're doing right now even can be from the phone, right?
Right, you're in Canada, I'm in the States.
They're rectangular around the world.
So you got to wonder, maybe this time stuff, there might be a little more to it. And I find it absolutely fascinating that there are other reports that give us hope in the pursuit of being able to accomplish these things for real in the laboratory. That's where a lot of focus needs to be placed that has not yet. And it has everything to do with gravity control, energy, and, well, even creating matter out of the vacuum.
Right, the theory of everything, the unified field theory. It's got to be all inclusive, and I am sure if anybody's going to get it and do it first, it's gonna be you, Jeremiah.
Well, it won't be me, but it will be certainly the minds on the team that are working on this. And so many great discussions between absolutely brilliant people, some big names that a lot of people probably will know. I'm meeting now new people that they've never heard of before that are equally just as brilliant and younger so they can carry on the work. I'm trying to basically unite these groups of people and start communicating with each other so that we can keep this going long after all the old dogs have died out.
Exactly. And on that note, I guess we will call this a wrap, and thank you for joining us. We will have to do this again very soon. Good luck in the lab, and I got to get my arse to bed so I can go find a job, I guess, this afternoon because it's already this morning.
Jeez, man. Yeah, it sounds good. You got to hang in there, man. Keep your chin up.
Absolutely.
Don't let life beat you down. Don't get all bummed out, man.
For sure.
You've done great work. Just don't forget that. You've done great work, and you've attracted a lot of really brilliant minds into one place and made a lot of things happen in this community. And if you're ever feeling down, like all bummed out, you got to remember just all the things that you have made happen, all the friendships that have come about from your channel, all the people who have met through communications in the chats and on the on the live streams and whatnot. There was an incredible amount of meetups and organizing and networking that has happened through your channel. So you got to remember that you are an important character in all of this, and just don't let it get you bummed out when you're in hard straits, because it's not the end and you're not stuck there.
I thank you, and words of wisdom by Jeremiah right there. And bless you, sir, and bless all of you. And we will catch you on the next one. Until then, a ta-ta.
Dude, for real, G, do you want to go on Zoom? Seriously. Like, I've got a story for you, buddy.